Welcome in, everybody, to Extreme Radio, presented by GracePointe Healthcare. Go to GracePointeHealthcare.com. Mention you're with 8-Man Extreme when you request your appointment online. You get $20 off your new patient office visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare, modern medicine the old-fashioned way, and sponsored by Dr. Sterling Foster. Visit drsterlingfoster.com for all your digestive issues and chiropractic needs.
I'm not going to lie to y'all. I don't always eat Jets Pizza. I always regret it, but I don't always eat Jets Pizza because it's never a bad time to have Jets. And to say Jets, let's get Jets. No matter whether you're in Springfield, Clarksville, Fort Campbell, coming soon to Goodlettsville, but no matter where you are, it's always a great time to say let's get Jets. And it's always a great time to get a great deal on insurance. That's why you need to go check out our buddy Joe Graves. IHateBuyingInsurance.com. It's a super simple website, super simple to remember, easy to remember. That's all you got to do. IHateBuyingInsurance.com. Go give him a chance. Go give him a shot. See what he can do for you.
If you had told me this time a year ago that we would be 13 days out from the championship instead of 6 days out, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have said I believe it when I see it. But now, with a 16 playoff, instead of the first weekend in November being the MTAC championship, we're looking forward to the semifinals.
Did you say at the beginning of the season?
I said this time last year.
Okay. I thought you said beginning of the season. I was like, well, it was announced in February. But
if you had,
no, you're right. You're right. I didn't know that it was ever going to happen. But, hey, they pulled the trigger on it, and I like it so far.
You think it's shaped up the way you expected it to?
Yeah. Well, obviously, because I picked the two games Thursday and Friday night and got them both. Isaiah did too.
Yeah.
I almost got the score in the first one.
Almost. All right. What'd you say?
It was 52-22, and it was like that, like at the
beginning. What was the score,
quarter.
Spencer?
It was 68-30. You're talking about Riverside.
Yeah, Riverside South.
68-32. The Knights got it done on the road. The number 3 seed, looking like the dark horse that James predicted.
I said they were going to be dangerous. You know what I was impressed with was the lack of penalties. They played a very complete, smooth, glossed over game. It was just, very flawless. There were little mistakes made, but very flawless. Crutcher Ezel, 3 pick sixes. David Black, Michael Black, they were on there, on the game and making it happen. Harriman Hunt showed up, had a couple moments. John Knotts was fantastic. Riley Hall was kind of quiet, but they have the guys to step up. And so, that's what I like to see in a team is, when one of their clear stars doesn't maybe have a superstar game, they still have other guys who could step up. Those are the teams that are going to make a deep run. And for South Haven, it's tough when you have a star like Manny Ding because teams are going to hone in on him and they're going to try to shut him down. And that's kind of what Riverside did. I say shut down very loosely because Ding still had 3 touchdowns the other night. So I say that very loosely. But Drew Atkinson was able to step up for him and make some plays. But that offensive line, they struggled at times. But I truly think the better team won Thursday night, and kudos to them. They're on a roll. They lost to Lancaster, but the Lancaster loss and the Ezel loss, the only ones they've had all year. So they definitely the Lancaster game stoked a fire in them. And I guarantee you they want to meet them again.
The other thing as well that you mentioned, the clean game, their first game, Riverside played, a bunch of penalties and a lot of mistakes made. And now that they're in a playoff situation, they've had a lot of time to advance. It's going to be looking really interesting for the semis.
Well, and Riverside had never made the playoffs. So, that's about as
Division
good
2,
as –
but not Division 1.
Right. So
Love Division 2.
That's about as good of a playoff game, as you can have. That's kind of how you want to kick it off for your program. It's just a great ball game. Isaiah, you got a chance to watch it. And, I think that correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was a pretty complete game from Riverside.
Yeah, definitely. And I know this might surprise y'all, but I have never seen – South Haven play in a game except when I was making a highlight video for a FCA player.
We saw him last year.
Nope, never.
Yeah, you did.
No.
You saw South Haven Sacred Heart.
Nope, wasn't at the game. couldn't
Yeah,
go.
you did.
Yeah, you were. You
In
and I made
Jackson?
that travel. Yeah, in Jackson. You were
That was
at
that
that
back
game.
and forth.
You're right. That was mixed up. Okay.
Yeah,
but
you and I
this is
made
a
it
different team. Okay.
But you're saying on a regular basis.
I'm
Yeah.
so unfamiliar with the offense,
Yeah.
what they run. I didn't know what we were going to see, but it wasn't the reason I picked that score to be so lopsided. It wasn't anything against South Haven because they had a great year and they're obviously on the climb. I just know I've played against. I've coached. I've coached against Riverside, and I know what they bring to the table. And I'll tell you, we had a rain delay last time I was up there, and I got really bored in the locker room. I'm not going to lie. There's not great cell service there. so I'm moping around the gym, and I come across a whiteboard with everybody's, what they're doing on bench press, squats, and I see all these numbers where someone is leading in every category, the lineman, and it's just numbers off the charts, and it's Crutcher Ezel. This kid is incredibly strong, but he's also agile, and I just knew, like, any time where he goes in there at linebacker, it's going to be messy. And, I would say I'd like to see the ball go to Manny Dang a little bit more. He'll probably get, the call a lot more next year for his senior year. But I think that they're going to be able to improve a lot next year, and I think Riverside is the best matchup in the entire MTAC with Ezel.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting
I
semi.
I agree.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting semi. Congratulations to Riverside as the number 3 seed, moving on to face the number 1 seed in the South that they lost to in their first game of the season. And the rainy playoff game that we called, you mentioned a great start to the 16 playoff program. It wouldn't say too much in this second playoff game that was covered between Lancaster and
Well, no, I
Bowling
said a
Green.
great start for Riverside.
Great start for Riverside in their first playoff berth.
I would say it's a great start overall because if Lancaster had a close game with Bowling Green, with the kind of season Bowling Green, I would almost, question it. Like, Lancaster did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, I'm talking about in terms of closeness of matches, because the purpose of the 16 playoff is to give everybody a fighting chance for the championship, which Bowling Green had. But it's interesting, of course, because this is the second year in a row where a team has gotten into the playoffs not in their own hand. So it's going to be interesting to see how how it gets cleaned up next year.
Well, what we got robbed of Friday night was playoff Gage Holman.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty upset about that.
Yep.
Didn't know that he was out. Had an AC sprain. And so
Tim Blankenship and I think one other
Lake
guy.
Bell,
Yep.
one of their guys that's on the up and coming. But their other seniors, Joel Thomason, Cooper Guy had a fantastic game. Number 16 coming up the middle. He actually put Deuce on the ground a couple times. Stopped a couple run plays. I mean, he was in there. He had a good game. He was trying to spark his team, and I get what you're saying with the scoring and being close. But then, like I said, in terms of doing what you're supposed to do, if Lancaster had struggled with Bowling Green, I'd be like, what's up with this? So, I mean, for me,
the rain was a huge factor into it, though.
Yeah, but it was interesting, too, how Lancaster overcame that, and they were still able to do their job and put up the points that they needed to. And Isaiah,
76-0 the final score on that one.
You look at Lancaster, and I mean, just so many weapons, just so many guys that can show up and do something.
Yeah, and they played their offense. They didn't have to be anybody else on Friday night. They just played exactly how they've played the whole year, and it was enough. But to talk about Gage Holman, that AC, are you talking about the AC joint on the shoulder? So as you might have already predicted, I know quite a bit about the AC joint and the labrum and the area around, and I can say that it was knowing who they were up against. And I say this, with 20/20 hindsight, that this was the best decision they could have made for
hands
Gage.
down.
I know that he is trying to play football at the next level. He has one, possibly two, I don't know the details, opportunities coming up.
I'd say two.
With the All-Star game and All-American game, where he'll be able to showcase his abilities at the national stage before scouts. And for this game, knowing who you're going up against, and I hate it for him, but those AC joints, as I've seen in my case, if you strain those things, labrums can tear, careers can end, surgeries can keep you out 6 months. It's just those shoulders with those running backs and defensive backs is not something you want to mess with.
Well, and you know that he hates it too, because as a senior, you want to play in your last high school game for your team in a playoff game where you're trying to pull an upset. That killed him too. But I mean, I hate to put it this way, saying that he had to make a business decision, but he kind of did. He kind of had to, and good on Coach Brown, not to be the one that says, well, you know what, just you got to just lay it out there, no matter what, all on the line, and realizing that this young man's future is much bigger than what the situation could have been.
Yeah, and I think it's to a certain extent, a Christian McCaffrey situation where you're getting really, really banged up. You're getting all these carries all year. You are absolutely worn down. And your team has an opportunity in a bowl game or a big game, but you have to look at the fact that you have hopes and dreams, and you've gotten your team into this situation. And even if you did play, you're not going to be what you would have been before this injury. Just let it heal. Go out there, get your other 2 opportunities in, get lots of carries, be able to showcase your speed, and just move on. But that does not discount the things you've done for team over the past few years.
You look at the workload he had all year: 152 runs for 1,268 yards, 25 touchdowns. He caught 3 touchdowns, and then he threw for another 12 touchdowns. So that's
40.
That's 40 touchdowns, and I did the math. 40 times 6 is 240. And Bowling Green scored 280 points, so he scored 240 out of the 280, and that's not counting 2-point conversions.
That's like,
I mean, he was literally
83% of the workload.
He was literally in on almost every touchdown. I think I would say a total of 5-6 touchdowns this year he wasn't involved in, whether he was throwing it, catching it, or running it.
Wow,
I mean,
incredible.
He was the workload, and I think that'll show really well to a lot of college teams that see that, hey, he's willing to be the workhorse. I think that could show up really well.
That's incredible.
And not to discount Lancaster either. Like we said, Lancaster, Deuce Bragg still had a matter of fact, I want to see if they've updated their stats, because I want to give the young men shout-outs. Let's see if they've put them on there.
Deuce Bragg, the Moore brothers showed up in that. And
Jordan Horde.
Yeah, we mentioned it prior to the game, too, is that with the rainy conditions, because it kept pouring throughout that entire ball game.
It let up for just a minute, and then –
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to say, and I don't want to look into this too much because this was a 76-0 game. I mean, these little things didn't end up mattering at the end of it, but I don't think that Lancaster is caring about these 2-point conversions enough. And I know that almost everyone, you expected them to start from the 7 because of a false start or a delay of game. It's just not paying attention to those little details. And again, this is something we haven't seen from them throughout the season, so it's probably not a big deal, but we just see, like, you have to take care of the little things, especially when this was a back, and I wouldn't say back and forth, but a winnable game at the beginning.
Right.
Did you have anything on Deuce Bragg with the stats?
No, they haven't put the stats up on Max Preps yet, and we didn't get them yet. So,
well, congratulations to Lancaster Christian. They the number 2 seed in the South remains in the playoffs, and they have a rematch of the semifinals from last year against the defending conference champions, Christian Community School Colts in White House. Well, we're getting our special guest ready to go. Here's our playoff bracket updated for this week. So, obviously, with the scores we just mentioned, the Christian Community School Colts will host the Lancaster Christian Academy Knights at 7 p.m. on Friday, and the Ezell Harding Christian School Eagles will host the number 3 seed Riverside Christian Academy Knights. And it's, as we said, the first time that they collided was Riverside and Ezell's. It was both their first games of the year, so a lot of different things that the teams had to work out. They were tied going into the fourth quarter, and then Ezell just turned on the Jets and got the W. So I wonder how close of a game we're going to see in that coming semi. While we're getting our guests ready to go, let's talk about that, Isaiah. Ezell and Riverside. That semi is a rematch of the first game for both of them in the regular season. Ezell's first 8-man football game in history, and that one is going to be a shootout going down to the wire. Oh, excuse me, you turned off the wrong headset.
And, I mean, contrary to popular belief, I think that a bye week at this point is not necessarily beneficial. It can be, but with Ezell, they're healthy. They're in a crazy rhythm. You know, things can happen. You see the momentum here where Ezell is pretty much sitting at, we've had a bye week, we've gotten to work on things. Mm-hmm. Riverside is like, wow, we just blew out a 2 seed, and we're coming to town, and we're going to show you what's up, you know. So you want me to make a prediction here?
We'll save the predictions for afterwards. But what I will say is that we did see Coach McGee was also on the Coach McGee was at the game on Thursday. I forgot that they moved it. He was at the game on Thursday, soaking that in between South Haven and Riverside. So that's going to be very beneficial for him to see kind of Riverside's strategy going into that semi.
Yeah, definitely. And Riverside is a team where they kind of change their offense and defense up in little ways for each matchup. And when we look at the Ezel game, obviously both teams completely different then than they are now. Riverside dominated 3/4 of that game. Their offense was flowing. Ezel couldn't run the ball very well because of the linebackers. So I think it's going to be really interesting.
And we'll just say we do have our guests ready to go. We'll just get your quick take on Christian Community and Lancaster. It is a rematch.
Why don't we save that for afterwards so we can all predict?
Because we just went over Ezel Riverside.
All right.
He's not predicting anything.
All right, go ahead.
But it's Christian Community Lancaster. It's the defending conference champion. So, I mean, there's still a team that managed to get the number 1 seed in the bye week in the North. But this Lancaster team is way different from what they had a year ago. So that semi, everything could be thrown out the door for that, but Lancaster's looking for vengeance.
Well, yeah, and I can say that for somebody who coached at that 40-by-80 field with a dominantly spread offense, which is what Lancaster usually runs, it is difficult to get those spread offenses to work because the field is so condensed you can't get guys open in spaces easily. So they're going to have to figure out ways to get the ball to hoard a little bit more, maybe run it up the middle, suck the defense inside instead of getting pushed outside in order to pull this one out.
It's going to be an interesting semi. We'll get to our playoff predictions in a little bit, but it's always a pleasure to have guests on the show and hear from their perspectives either around the league or around the region, as we do have the director for the NHSA, Mr. Hank St. Denis, with us. Mr. Denis, how are things?
Great, Spencer. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. How'd you feel about the playoff games? Because you got to see both of those on Thursday and Friday. How did you feel about the performance from both Riverside and Lancaster?
Yes, it's pretty much what I expected. I wasn't surprised. I thought the weather obviously had a factor in one of the games, in terms of having to play in that downpour.
Coach, or Mr. Denis, Coach, I call everybody Coach. So about an hour ago, the rankings came out for this last weekend. Evangel Christian still sitting at number 1, and they're a team that could possibly they play for their championship this Friday night against Ezekiel Academy, I believe.
Yes.
And they're a team that is looking to come to the tournament. Just how good, you've seen Evangel for several years, just how good is this Evangel team? Because we saw them beat Ezel Harding earlier in the year, but it seems like they're just even have gotten even better since we saw them against Ezel Harding.
Well, I think the biggest key is you've got a quarterback who really is a dominant player and has shown his ability to, he's a very accurate passer, but he has also the ability to scramble when necessary. And he's got some mature receivers who, have been with them for a while as well. So it just makes for a pretty dynamic, potent team when it comes down to playing 8-man football.
Now, we like to think we've got some dominant teams here in Tennessee, but a team coming out of Louisiana, Grand Coteau, Louisiana, the Birchman's Academy, picked up a state championship win last night out of the ACEL, the league down there in Louisiana. And I know that they're kind of looking at going to the tournament. How good are they? I believe this is 2 or 3 seasons in a row they've been unbeaten.
Yeah, they're actually 3 years unbeaten. So you're talking about in the neighborhood of 30 game win streak. I'm not sure if they've played 10 games every season, but
right.
It's either 9 or 10 that they've played.
Another team that I wanted to bring up, you got the Pack Panthers out of South Carolina.
Yes.
What are some of the things you know about them? Because again, that might be a team that we see in Florida, or that's definitely one that we need to keep an eye on in terms of matchups.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing when you look at different teams from different states is obviously we in the South believe that we play the best football in the country. Whether it be at the high school level or at the college level, we certainly feel that, there's such passion for football in the Southeast. And so when you talk about Louisiana, you talk about usually pretty hard-hitting, tough players. When you talk about Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, you've got really 4 states that really are very, very enthusiastic over their football. And so, whether you take it down to the rec level on up, you're going to have teams that are going to be very solid fundamentally, and that are going to put it all out there week in, week out. So I do think it makes for a good tournament to have teams of that caliber from different states to see exactly how good the football is in different states. And so I know from being around it for almost 20 years now that you just never know. But usually when you look at a roster of players, whether it be at the at the 8-man or 11-man high school level, if a team is predominantly juniors and seniors, you're going to have usually a very tough team. And if they played a whole season together, obviously they should be peaking there at the end of the season, unless there's a key injury or something like that to, say, a quarterback or a dominant running back type of thing.
Now, a lot of people see see the rankings, see the teams from all the different states, and they kind of wonder, how you come about, because there's, for instance, you have Evangel, at 7-2 on top, and a lot of people question the 2 losses, and maybe they don't understand that those 2 losses are 2 11-man teams in Alabama. So, just kind of give us a quick rundown how you guys do the rankings.
Yeah. Okay. So primarily, we're basically pulling from 8-man teams that are pretty responsive in terms of, are they posting their records? Are they posting their rosters? Are they giving us feedback in terms of a survey that we do before the season starts in terms of, who's coming back, what positions do they play, how long have they been with you, and things like that. So we go into as much depth as we can to figure out, how strong a team is based upon preseason, and then obviously throughout the season to see week in, week out how they're doing against teams, and obviously trying to figure out the teams that they're playing, how weak or how strong those teams are. And then looking at it overall, just trying to figure out, because we do use a number of other things other than just records in order to determine whether or not a team is where they rank and that type of thing. Obviously, who beat who and who played who and that type of thing. And with the MTAC, it's one of those things where you've got 4 or 5 really strong teams, and then of course they play each other, so there's going to be some losses there among several of those teams, and that's going to dictate a little bit of where they are position wise. And then you've got some games that you would say, okay, well, we might want to throw out that game because of some particular reason, whether it be weather or whether it be, traveling or that type of thing, to really kind of look at it from an overall how good or how strong that team is. But like anything, because they don't all play each other and they don't all play comparable teams, it's every bit as much as they do at the college level. You're pretty much going on a ranking basis on the basis of what you can accumulate during the course of the season. And, everybody's got their own idea who should be number 1. Everybody's got their own idea of who should be their top 10. I get that, and that's one of those things where that's part of the excitement of looking at it on a week by week basis.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it's usually the coach of a team or a parent who has a kid on a team.
In terms of
who people who think their team should be number 1 or top 10 or
oh
something like that.
oh yeah yeah yeah, absolutely, and it's not without those messages that say, how come this guy, how come we're ranked so low and we've got these wins and that team's way up there and they haven't played anybody and stuff like that. Yeah.
So to give you one of those kind of just to play devil's advocate in a sense, to give
Sure.
one of those fan perspectives. So Ezel Harding, they're ranked at number 3. Their only loss, of course, to the number 1 ranked Evangel Lightning. Lancaster Christian, they stay at that number 6 seed even with their playoff win against Bowling Green. Of course, you mentioned it yourself. May throw out certain games due to the rain and different factors and such. So with Lancaster Christian, they're at the number 6 rank, and you guys only take about four teams down to Florida for your tournament. What would it take for Lancaster Christian to potentially, I don't want to say necessarily leapfrog the Panthers or leapfrog Ezel, but I know it comes down to a voting decision, a panel and such, but what would, at least from your perspective, what would it take for Lancaster Christian to kind of potentially take that slot in the tournament ahead of Ezel Harding?
Well, of course, there's the possibility that they play each other again, obviously for the MTAC championship, if they both win this coming weekend. So that's certainly a factor in the whole setup. But let me throw in another caveat, and that is, we would really, really want to have the top 4 teams compete in that tournament, but we don't necessarily have the luxury of that simply because we have teams that have playoffs that prohibit them from coming to the tournament, and so that sort of throws a monkey wrench into having them. For instance, the Wichita Warriors, who are unbeaten, have been a pretty strong team for several years, and they actually play in their state playoffs, which will keep them from coming down to the tournament. The other thing is that because of the uncertainty of who's going to be there, and knowing that teams may or may not have enough time to prepare to come down there because of the logistical and the financial and all that goes on with it, we don't have an exclusive tournament in terms of who gets to come. And so we do have what we would call an open tournament, trying to get the top teams to come down there. And that's one of those things where, like I said earlier, we don't have the luxury of being able to have the top 4. So we're looking at trying to get as many of the top teams that we can. And because of that, we really don't even know until that maybe that last week before the tournament. For instance, the MTAC tournament at this particular point, you've got the uncertainty. There's 4 teams that certainly are qualified to win that championship. Mm-hmm. And so any one of those four certainly could make the trip to that tournament. And in fact, we've said it's basically available to any one of those 4 because they have consistently shown that they're a top 10 team. And once you've played a whole season, there's no sense in saying, okay, we're going to deny you from coming simply because, hey, at this particular point, we don't know if you're going to be in there or not. So if you're interested in coming, hey, we're going to welcome you to come. And that's one of those things where, we've done that over, the 10 years that we've been doing this thing, or thereabouts. And so, again, it comes down to saying, okay, well, we wish we'd have the top teams, but we can't count on that always happening.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the tournament is more so open to try and get the top teams going. Riverside Christian right now, the only two losses they have are to the higher ranked teams, Lancaster Christian and Ezel Harding. So again, a hypothetical thing here. If Riverside ends up, as James is predicting, being the dark horse of the tournament, if they win the championship, is that going to be that invitation sent to them of getting to the Florida tournament if they accept?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mean, we certainly want the MTAC champion down there. We've been fortunate to have that. We've had MTAC teams down there for a number of years now, and they're very competitive with all the teams and all the different states that have been down there. And looking back over the history of the tournament, we've had teams from California and from Missouri, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana. It'd be great if we could get a representative from all those states, but it's not within my power to do that. So, unfortunately, yeah.
Last year, obviously the game had to get. By the way, I do want to mention this: Wichita Warriors in the last 4 years, including this year, they've taken 6 losses total. 5 of those losses, St. Mary's Academy. They're in Kansas. I think that's kind of interesting. Last year, tournament had to get moved to up to here to Dayton. We played it right after the championship, due to the terrible situation going on in Panama City. So kind of give us an update on that, and then talk about how great of a spot that is to host a tournament like that, especially right in the middle of November.
Yeah, we've been very, very fortunate. I mean, obviously last year was an anomaly because of the hurricane, but usually it's great weather down there. It's good football weather. It's usually sunny. Typical Florida, it's going to be usually in the 60s, 70s, maybe in the low 80s, depending upon the day. And then it's just it's a good reward for an outstanding season. That's why we really we really encourage teams to come down there, because if you've had a pretty good season or a great season, why not come down and reward your team for that great season and the experience of coming to a tournament and playing teams from other states. One thing it has done for teams is it's certainly created a buzz within their community. And for some teams, they'd actually say it's really done great for recruiting, and it's done great for getting players that normally wouldn't play or are sitting on the fence whether they really want to play or not. And then they go, well, there's that shot at Florida. Hey, I'm going.
Right.
I'm going to play. Right. And then the experience that they have down there, win or lose, it's one of those things where the bonds that you build on a trip of that sort, it makes for a lifetime of memories, and certainly something you hold dear throughout your years. It's one thing to play high school football. It's the greatest time to play football because it's really fun and it's really enjoyable, and it's not, quote, a business as it tends to be once you move to the next level. And without a doubt, people go, well, that football, high school football is what you really remember.
Exactly.
And it's just no better time. and it's a great way to end the season, not only for the players but also for the fans, the cheerleaders, the band, the parents,
Exactly.
and just just the whole community, and it's something to rally around, and it's not that often that maybe you get that opportunity to do that. So
Right. Now I'm gonna ask you to get a little reminiscent here for a second on the last question. You said you guys have been doing this for 10 years. You guys have had a ton of great teams and games going on. Is there a game, or maybe a top three would be a little easier? I don't know, maybe one would be easier. Is there some top games that kind of stick out to you? Maybe whether it was championship or maybe even just a semifinal game that you're like, you know what, this is what the tournament's all about. This level of talent is what it's all about.
yeah, well, one that sticks out in my mind is the game in which the Sacred Heart, and they had that really talented quarterback, Ashlock.
Ashlock, yes, sir.
Yeah, and that game was back and forth, and it really came down to, I think it was like the last play of the game. They needed to go about 45 yards for a touchdown in order to either tie or win the game. And he drops back, is mobile. He moves around the pocket, throws this bullet downfield into the end zone, and his receiver catches the ball. They tie the game, or they're about to tie the game. They go for the 2-point conversion. They make the reception, and they win the game. Really, the game was over. They make the 2-point conversion and win the championship. And I want to say that was 3 years ago.
I think it was. I think that. Yeah. Well, let's see. Yeah, it would have been 3 because Ashlock was a senior in 16, so that would have been 16.
Yeah, and then
I know
Christian Community won it in 17. And then Evangel won it last year, so yeah. I mean,
I'll tell you, the one that sticks out to me is the Life Academy South Haven game from 15.
Yes,
that one was a barn burner.
Yeah, both won defeated, and that went down really to the last second as well. I remember Life. I think Life stopped them. They were driving. And they stopped them there. They threw it in the end zone a couple of times, but didn't make the reception, and that was the end of the game. So,
well, Spencer and Isaiah, I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited. And Mr. Hank, I appreciate you giving us the opportunity. We're excited to come down, and in case people don't know, we'll be doing the championship or whatever games on Monday are happening, the championship consolation. So I'm personally excited about getting to come down there and see some of this talent.
It's going to be special.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Yes, I think you'll be. I think it'll be great trip for you guys, and appreciate you guys that you're able to come down there, and look forward to having you.
Absolutely, that's what we're all about.
Yep, exactly.
That's what we're all about.
We appreciate you coming on the show, taking time out of your Sunday, Mr. Denis, and looking forward to the national championship and such. And hopefully our broadcasts are going to help you to be able to see which teams could potentially go down towards.
Absolutely, it's been immensely helpful with you guys covering as many games on a weekly basis as you have. It's always helpful to have other eyes on teams and getting input from you guys. So keep up the great work that you guys have done.
In case folks are listening, we're always open to franchising.
Of course.
Per Mr. Ray Kroc. So, but thank you again, Mr. Hank, and hope you have a great rest of your Sunday.
All right, thank you.
We'll see you.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Always great interview to get guys like Hank St, Denis on the show, and get
just so much knowledge. I mean, I enjoy just listening to it. I really do. And the perfect timing for the rankings to come out too.
And speaking of which, we listen to him for knowledge. It's time for you and Isaiah to give your football knowledge.
Lay some knowledge on you.
Bracket. Here we go. Playoff bracket is on the screen, ladies and gentlemen. We're down to the essential final 4 for the Middle Tennessee Athletic Conference in varsity football. Do you mind not making me hear back? I don't like hearing my own voice. Thank you.
I don't like hearing your voice either.
So, as I reported early on Twitter, if you're not following me at Spencer Tomset, what are you doing with your life other than listening to the show?
Not following Spencer Tomset.
Exactly. Shameless self-promotion. But as I reported earlier, we'll start with the game that James and Matthew Bowden will be calling from White House, Tennessee. The defending conference champions, the Christian Community School Colts, host the number 2 seed in the South, the Lancaster Christian Academy Knights. They collided earlier this year, and Lancaster pulled off what some might say is an upset. James saw it coming. He thought it was going to be potential because of Lancaster having such good returning pieces around them. 42-22 was the final score on that, but there's a different story here. It's at May Flanders Field. It's in a playoff atmosphere. It's a rematch of last year's semifinal, but the defending conference champions, they have their challenge out for them. That bye week certainly helped, especially with some of the injuries they had in their game against Lighthouse. But, James, it's time for your week-to-week prediction, your prediction for this first semifinal playoff.
Well, they had some injuries in the Freedom game as well. So this week off has been a definite positive. It's the same situation as last year. Game at May Flanders, number 2 seed versus number 1 seed. Winner goes to the title game. You run down the line. The only difference is CCS has lost a ton of seniors. But to be fair, Lancaster beat CCS earlier on their field.
Mm-hmm.
They've only played one game against CCS at CCS, and they didn't win. So, same coaching staffs, kind of the same players for Lancaster, but they're going to have to adapt, like you were talking about earlier, Isaiah. And they're going to have to run the ball a little bit more. That's what you have to do. But let me give you a reason why they're going to struggle running the football and why Deuce Bragg might struggle. Mr. Josh Madden, a junior rather, at defensive end, 31 total tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, leads the team. You have Mr. Avery Harper, a senior who's been there for 3, maybe 4 years. 77 total tackles on the year, 6 tackles for loss, a sack and a half, 2 quarterback hurries, and a fumble recovery. Madden also has a fumble recovery as well as 2 forced fumbles. You have Mr. Will Adams up the middle as well. 35 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. He's number 2 on the team in sacks. This defensive line is going to they have to be able to put pressure on this Lancaster offensive line rather. And then you look at the backfield. Your defensive backfield is Brooks Pugh and Micah Jones. Pugh with 2 interceptions, Jones with 3. Pugh 7 passes defensed, Jones 3 passes defensed. Tackles, they're some of the top teams in tackles. And then you got the wild card of the whole bit, Mr. Johnny Stapleton. He's got 2 interceptions on the year as well, 5 passes defensed. So, all that being said, guess what? I'm going to take CCS at home against Lancaster.
That after all the talks we've had off camera.
Lancaster's very self-explanatory. Had to explain myself as to why I'm picking CCS. There you go.
So basically, Isaiah, this is the second week in a row where James is going to preface, and
guess what?
Up, and then you're just going to give, I picked this team.
CCS is used to being at their field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're used to being there. Brooks Pugh's already caught. He's caught 4 touchdowns from Micah Jones. No, that's rushing. Hang on. He's ran for 4 touchdowns. Brooks Pugh's caught 7 touchdowns for Micah Jones. Johnny Stapleton's caught 7 touchdowns for Micah Jones.
So begin the comments of #CCS bias for James.
And Jones has run for 7 touchdowns.
Even though he gave you proof of why he's taking a stance, begin the comments of accusing him.
No,
of CCS
I think that's died. Listen. I have been hard on. I picked South Haven to beat CCS. I've been hard on CCS this year. And over, yeah, have they slipped up? Yes. They lost to Lighthouse. Dude, they had a lot of injuries going on. Lost to Freedom. Had injuries going on.
Are those injuries over, though? Are they back?
That's the question.
Yep. We haven't got it. We need an injury report.
How much percentage, what percentage are they at of healed up? That's the huge question. If they come into Friday as banged up as when they played Lighthouse, then, yeah, it's going to be a rough game for them. But if not, no matter what, I'm still picking CCS.
Yeah, and I mean, I get where you're coming from. They're obviously in their comfort zone. And
I think that's a huge deal.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed throughout the season is that for teams that run a spread offense like Lancaster does and likes to get to the outside, they want to almost tempt teams to do that because you only have 20 yards on one side, 20 yards on the other as opposed to 25. You want them to feel like they can get outside, and once they're headed in that direction, swarm it. But then again, that's going to open up the middle. And that's when those big receivers going on verticals up the middle, them doing crossing routes. I saw in the EZL game, they've given Deuce the thumbs up to call audibles. He saw something. He saw there was a cover zero happening, so he ran slant routes to the middle. That's the type of calls that he's going to have to make for them to be successful. He's going to have to see when they're overcommitting to the strong side or overcommitting to the outside and working that middle of the field. So I'm taking Lancaster in this, but I think it's going to be a closer game than we saw last time.
Split between the two, and James, you and Matthew Bowden will have your first call together on a
first
broadcast.
Actual call.
Yes, first actual call. But
thanks, James.
It's just good luck talking over the blaring speakers at White House.
Listen, it is a party atmosphere.
It is.
If there's two party schools in this conference, it's Lancaster and CCS.
Oh, yeah.
Party school, there you go.
Exactly.
There were bye weeks I wanted to just buy a CCS hoodie and just sit on the sideline and eat the food and just take it in. It's just the atmosphere.
It is, yeah.
The
it's great.
Best food.
Yeah, you guys will have it
too.
Yeah, you'll. We haven't been to CCS. We only went there for the Jamboree. We haven't been there once this year. I missed Philly cheesesteak. We haven't been there once. It's good. It's good. Isaiah can testify.
It is fire.
I
like the burgers too.
Fire. Oh yeah, they got good grill masters. But yep, split down the middle between the predictions. So James taking the Colts, Isaiah taking the Knights. The Eagles and Riverside collide between the two. The rematch of August 16th, I believe, the first 8-man football game in history for Ezell Harding and the first game of the season for Riverside Christian. And, again, we all know how that went down. Tied going into the fourth quarter, and Riverside fumbled it twice in the backfield, and Ezell just ran away with it on, I believe, a 30-point run, something along those lines. But
it was tied at 30, and then it was 60-30 was the final.
The Eagles got their job done against Lancaster, and they essentially have home field advantage through the playoffs and through the championship because they're the host site. Riverside, however, with that dominant win against the number 2 seed in the North, the Patriots, all the factors involved, and like you said, a clean game against the Patriots on Thursday night. It's looking like this is going to be one of the more interesting semis. I mean, both semis are great. But a number 1 and number 3 seed colliding in Antioch, this is going to be a game to watch. And, James, the floor is yours. Do you take the dark horse or do you take the newest kid on the block for 8-man football?
Well, Ezell Harding has tore it up all year, and we've seen it. We've seen that they only lost to the number 1 ranked team in really the South, in Evangel Christian. So they absolutely dominated throughout the season. They beat CCS at CCS's home field. They won the games that they needed to win. They whooped Lancaster at Lancaster. They did what they needed to do. They are one of the best teams in the state. That being said, Riverside is not the same team they played the first week of the season. Okay? They're not. Crutcher Zell has got 92 tackles. He's number 4 overall. Riley Hall is number 7 overall, 72 tackles. Michael Whidden, 70 tackles. They've got playmakers who are going to be able to step up. David Black has just grown all year, and he's found a way to find his brother. That Dart connection is just insane. Crutcher Zell, the young man has stepped up. He's done a great job all year doing what he had to do to get his team a win. That line, Riley Hall, John Knotts, I mentioned Michael Whidden, just has had a great season. For that reason, I'm taking Riverside Christian over Ezell Harding. We're going to have ourselves a CCS Riverside Championship at Ezell Harding next Saturday, November 9th.
So what you're telling me is that you're going with the dark horse, so you either look like a genius or you look like
guess what?
a bandwagon.
Let's say that. Let me put it this way, okay? I missed on 11 picks this year.
Uh-huh.
I
11,
mispicked 11 games this year out of 56. 57 maybe. Yeah, 57. So 11 out of 57. So you can look at it two ways. I only missed 11. So, I mean, obviously I know a little something. Or I'm an idiot because I still lost 11 games. Some of them I shouldn't have lost.
About 81% right.
It's about an 81% clip, yeah.
Yep. That's a good parlay, I'd say. That gets you money in Vegas.
I'm just saying. So, hey, guess what? 2016, we had a great MTAC Bowl between Riverside and CCS.
We're going to see.
We're going to see another postseason game between the two. Addie Izell Harding next Saturday, November 9th. We're going to have Jordan Flanders and Travis Creasy in here. Listen, the story's built for it.
Yep.
Coach Creasy gets diagnosed with leukemia.
Yeah.
Beats it. Brings his team back. Gets the first playoff berth. Dark horse 3 seed all the way through. Plays in the championship. Now, I'll save that pick for next week. But
depending on the
results, story is built for it.
It is. Isaiah?
Now, as much as I love the idea of fairy tales and stories, let me get into it. So, Izell, the strongest running attack in the MTAC. There's no question. They're passing over less than 100 yards per game, and they've won every game in the MTAC because of their rushing attack. But, Spencer, I don't know why you're calling the best team in the MTAC a dark horse. I'm taking Riverside.
Well, because they're the 3 seed and they lost to the 1 and 2 seed.
I'm telling you, Riverside is going to win this game.
When did I call Riverside the best team in MTAC?
I'm calling them the best team in MTAC.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I kind of set myself up there. I do believe in fairy tales.
Okay.
I think Riverside is going to be a very, very tough matchup for Izell, and if they can stop the run, then Ezell's going to have to look at themselves in the mirror for the first time in MTAC
now,
and say, can we pass the ball?
So you think it's going to be Lancaster Riverside in the championship?
Yes.
Now I do see this going to.
I'm not going to say it yet.
I'm not picking scores, but there's a very high probability that y'all could be there. Y'all could be there late Friday, because I think this.
What are you?
I think this game could go to overtime.
What? Did I miss something?
No, I
Oh.
think this game could go to overtime Friday night. Y'all could be there late.
Hey, I mean, Isaiah and I are ready for it. Isaiah and I will be on the call for that one.
No, there's going to be over 100 points combined in this game.
Oh,
I firmly
easily.
believe
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I would say both games. I'd say both games. Honestly, I think we have a shootout on both sides.
Both defenses have been. I ran over the cord.
Oh, okay. That's why you're.
Our cords are all draped down.
Yeah.
Both defenses have been good enough to get things done throughout the year, but both offenses are so strong that an 8-man defense on a 100 by 50 yard field cannot contain them at this point. It's going to be an offensive dominant game.
There you go.
It's going to be. It's not going to be a knock on either defense. It is going to be just straight up offense.
Well,
And I'm not saying that CCS and the Riverside are going to win because Lancaster and Izell are going to slack off. I'm saying they're going to win because they're going to step it up another level in situations that are favorable.
This is what the 16 playoff was made for. And the Colts and Knights of Lancaster collide. James and Matthew Bowden will have the call on that. And, of course, we did get confirmation on Friday from the league that both games are at 7 p.m. on Friday. No movements on that. Unless they have any rain movements.
Well, it's supposed to pour all day Wednesday, Thursday. So you play a game on Friday, the field could be a little jacked up.
It's possible. They have a good grounds crew at May Flanders Field.
They also both have their own fields.
Yeah,
so.
and Ezell Harding. I haven't met their grounds crew people, but it looked.
It's the coaches.
That's the majority of schools in the
I'm about
MTAC.
to say, yeah. Well, CCS is it's the coaches.
No, most schools in the MTAC, you're like going to the school like early Friday morning, and the seniors are out there lining the field.
Yep.
Like, we had to meet
how
up
it
and line
is.
them.
That's how it is.
So James and Matthew Bowden will have the call from White House, Tennessee. Isaiah and I will have the call from Antioch, Tennessee. And both semis, it's going to be special leading up to the MTAC Championship on November 9th. Well, that's going to wrap it up for Extreme Radio today, presented by GracePointe Healthcare. Go to GracePointeHealthcare.com. Request your appointment online. Mention you're with 8-Man Extreme, and you get $20 off your new patient office visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare, modern medicine the old-fashioned way. Also sponsored by Dr. Sterling Foster. Go to drsterlingfoster.com for all your digestive issues and chiropractic needs.
You know what they need in White House? They need a Jets pizza.
At some point.
Because no matter where you are, it's always a great time to get Jets Pizza, specifically Springfield, Clarksville, Fort Campbell. But, like I said, coming soon to Goodlettsville. So, hey, you know what? Springfield, Goodlettsville, not that far from White House.
Somebody in the comments said they need one in Lebanon, too.
Hey, they need one anywhere they
any
can get them.
city, yeah.
Just
Jonathan
get them.
Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. There you go.
The Jet wanting some Jets. That's a cool one. The Jet wanting some Jets.
Anyways, Jets Pizza. Let's get Jets. And it's always a great time to get a great deal on insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to go check out our buddy Joe Graves, IHateBuyingInsurance.com. Go give him a shot. See what he can do for you. IHateBuyingInsurance.com.
That'll wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. The playoffs are already been in full swing, but this weekend the semis between CCS and Lancaster and Ezel Harding and Riverside. For James Shannon, Isaiah Austin, everybody who makes St. Man Extreme so successful, I'm Spencer Tomset. We'll see you for the semifinals to see who's going to the big dance.
See ya!